Welcome everybody to the wrap episode for Nathan Guerra here, Anna Russell next to me. This is a show all about all things Zwift over the last week, with a little bit of a focus usually on racing, as that's pretty much what we do out on Zwift a lot of times when it comes to myself and Anna Russell. Anna coming out of New Zealand, myself, of course, out of Wisconsin, North America. So, Anna, what we're talking about today, we are in with the topic of the show, how to structure training during ZRL, Zwift Academy, Prem League, and weekend racing. A lot coming up when it comes to this next couple of months of Zwifting. So I think it's a great topic that you put together for something to talk about with so many announcements coming. It seems like just bam, 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 one after another that are really focused in on how you would get fitness and use it in an intensity type way. You do got to kind of have some balance around that kind of stuff. Our guest today is going to be Bleakley, PC Yoda. We're going to be going over how to optimize your Zwift setup. We're going to try and speak from a layman's point of view to get an idea of how exactly can you make the best setup for Zwifting that you possibly can. And I think looking at, what a budget setup might be, as well as how far do you want to go with this. Fashion of the week, as always, and then what's going to be coming up over the weekend. So, Anna, awesome show we got today.
Yes, it's kind of funny. Like I sort of look at the show coming up, and then literally always the day before, all the stuff happens, and I'm like, we picked this topic of the week like 3 days ago, and now all the stuff is dropped, and I've got so many things I want to talk about. But yeah, it does feed in quite nice. I know Zwift did an update yesterday or the day before, and sort of underlying in there. And if you watched GP Llama as well, you would have seen in the update there was a little soft launch of the Zwift Academy. So there's a few little things happening there. There's a website up. The links are at the moment not going to registration. I think that opens on the 15th. So we will have a Zwift Academy expert on next week on the show to talk through that. But it does tie into the topic, and it was because we had a question from the show last week of, we obviously talk a lot about all the races on, and we're doing a lot of races, and how do you actually structure a week of training around this without burning out, especially by the end of the ZRL seasons. And I know we've kind of talked about this sometimes on broadcasts before when we've been commentating, Nathan, is there is a way to sort of work this into your training so you don't completely burn, but it takes I think it's a little bit of figuring out what races are sort of your A races in the week and which ones you want to use for execution. So, I mean, if I look at myself, for an example, I've probably raced a little too much this week, but I tend to do a workout on a Monday, and then on Tuesday, I'll hit one of the classics races, but I use that primarily as a practice some different tactics. So not all out. I'll usually sit in the bunch a whole lot and then try some things like, can I get away? If I drop off this pack, how much effort does it take to get back on? Those kind of things, working with the draft. Then on a Wednesday for me, I'll hit kind of more of a threshold effort, and I do that with the Sisu KQOM challenge. So again, kind of ease into the pack, and then whatever the climb is, so this time it was Volcano, it's a 7-minute all-out effort. Thursday night TTT, and I use that as a bit of sort of 1-minute power work. Then I take Friday off, and then Saturday is sort of more run and swim focused. So that's sort of my week. I think there's a bit too much in there. But what do you think, Nathan? What do you do?
Well, I mean, we can look at what I've been up to the last week and give you an idea, and then add in what exactly is coming as well, and what I can even add there, and then try and figure out what pieces of this puzzle can I keep, and what pieces of this puzzle do I just have to let go of, even if I would want to do them, right? Like, it's so currently, right now, as far as Zwifting goes, if you take a look at my Zwift history and the activities that I've done, there'll be on once a week, there'll be some sort of a workout focus, because I've gotten really focused with my training as of recently. I Zwifted into the race season mainly with fun. So I was racing the KISS 100. I was doing like something in the middle of the week, like grabbing, like I was doing this like crazy thing where I'd be like, all right, a minimum of 2 races back to back, maybe 3 races back to back. That'll be my endurance training plus intensity. Sit in, try and win the races if it's mainly endurance focused. So I had these ways I was using racing. I got into season and was like, okay, you can get away with that so far, but at the top level of elite pro, it just wasn't making it happen. So then over the last couple of weeks, I was like, I need to start having some actual structured training. So I started incorporating at least once a week, if not twice a week, something that looked a little bit more like intervals, or some sort of peak powers across 3 hours, or some sort of ride that was looking to make sure I was sharpening the right tools. Because when it comes to your body, the exercise systems, each one of them are a knife you sharpen, and you bring it to and then you bring it to battle. And if you don't really focus in on each one of those exercise systems really well, they all might get a little bit sharpened by racing, but you're going to end up a little bit dull on them. Whereas in structured training, it hones in with the specific sharpening tools that you need to make that as quick and able to just cut through butter as you possibly can. So anyway, so that's a very long-winded way of saying 2 structured or so a week. And then I obviously with Wednesday Worlds, that's going to be my fun on Zwift right now. So I'm throwing that in the middle of everything. And I kind of have to structure a little bit of training around that. Although Wednesday Worlds is short enough that I can kind of get away with that either being an opener for the next day. It's not going to totally tax me where I am just done for the rest of the week, because it's not a 2-hour drain yourself effort. It's like a 25-minute, get some VO2 max in there. So that's what I'm up to currently. And what, if we talk about how Wednesday Worlds went yesterday, I mean, it was absolutely awesome. Usually at the top of the show, we how'd Wednesday Worlds go? What's going on with any racing that you're up to on Zwift? So for me, we did Box Hill yesterday, 5:37 over Box Hill.
Whoa.
5:37. I think that might have been Liz Van Hollen was there and said she had her fastest ever. KK was there. Kirsten Kolchinsky was there, said she had her fastest ever. Loker was there as well. I'm not sure I'm not sure how that went down with her. She's in chat. I mean, so it was insane. Next showed up. BL13 showed up. Electric Spirit Coast showed up. They all had like 5 to 6 riders. It was pretty insane. It was pretty awesome. It ended up being a couple off the front that attacked at the end. It was Jammers, Jam Rosick, and Barry from not BL13's Barry, but Rich Barry from Next went, and they went at that perfect kind of 1.5K to go ish. There's right where it's like that. What no one's gonna chase because they want to hold back their sprint, and then there's all these teams there, and all of our solos are like, come on, somebody go. But they had enough representation. And then I'm being followed anytime I go. I'm just going to say it. Every time I go, somebody's coming with me. So I even said it on broadcast. They're like, well, you going to go there? I was like, if I chase that, they're chasing me. I got to trust everybody else. So it ended up being a good sprint for 4th for me. But, and Kay got me at the line, but yeah, it was a good time in Wednesday Worlds yesterday. So that's a segue into, all right, how am I going to structure with what I'm already doing on Zwift? I mean, what are you already doing right now when it comes to racing, Anna? And how'd this last week go for you? And then how are you going to throw this other stuff in that's just been announced?
Yeah, so I think I will say one fun race story since you shared yours. I did the Sisu KQM challenge, and I raced in the ACAT, which is kind of fun because for me it makes the flat parts of the course really hard because the guys Josh Lipka was there racing, right? So I'm racing being like,
you posted.
Yeah.
You posted on your Instagram. Okay, everybody, check out Anna's Instagram. She's posting her live stream stuff now. And there was a cool move with Lipka that she posted in a reel, I believe. So make sure you check that out.
So I managed to, so I like the climb part. The climb with the A's is fine. So I did the volcano climb, but I was dying and got down to the flat and I'd kind of mentally gone, I'll just roll this in. There's 4 of us. I'm in the top 4 now. We've made the break. This is all good with me. And then Josh messages me and is like, I'll do a lead out for you. I was like, oh, okay. Actually, that would be kind of fun. And so he screams past. And I think this kind of showed, if you have a little strategy, if he'd screamed past and I didn't have any strategy with him, I would have gone, oh, I'm never going to catch up to that. But he knew I had a draft power up. And so as soon as he came past, I dropped the draft, got on him, pushed it up to 7 watt a kg for a short period of time, and then just got right on him and streamed right to the end. It was beautiful. So that was a heap of fun. But I think this is, I know, a question I get from friends who see that I Zwift a lot is, man, you just do hard training. You just train hard all the time. And I think it's really important to know, like, both Nathan and I are coaches. So there are different coaching philosophies, right? And I know I don't have the time to do anything more than 8 hours a week on a really good week. So I do not have the time to go out for a 5 hour zone 2 ride. So for me to get fit for longer races with a background in Ironman, so there is a big base there, is I only do 45-minute to an hour sessions, but they are all hard. So that's running is hard, swimming is hard, on the bike is hard, but it's only 6 or 7 sessions a week. And there is a lot of rest in between. So yes, I race Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but now I pretty much don't cycle again until Sunday. Oh, looks like Nathan may have disappeared. He does have internet issues at the moment. This is why I am taking on the production, so hopefully he can come back shortly. But this is probably actually a nice segue to our guest while we wait for Nathan. Oh, he's back. He's back. Yay. I was talking to a statue there, but it's all right. It was, so I think when you see people racing a lot, you've got to look at what they're circulating their training with. So I think it is a mistake if you race Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then try and hit a 4-hour ride on Saturday and then a long ride on Sunday and then start race again. You kind of can't have a foot in both camps. You're either doing your sort of polarized long, easy base work with maybe one race a week to sharpen up and one workout, or you're doing just the kind of high intensity training and not fatiguing yourself with the long stuff. I mean, I'm prepared to be corrected, but I think with athletes I've experimented on with this. So I coached a doctor for a while who just didn't have the time capacity to do that. She could get ready for a half Ironman event on short, intense sessions without the fatigue of the long, easy. The only issue with that is you don't end up having the muscular endurance when you decide to do the long stuff. So you've got to be prepared for a bit of muscular pain. But that's kind of how I structure things.
And I would have to agree with you that when it comes to being able to get away with high intensity on top of high intensity on top of high intensity, that is a great strategy if you don't have a ton of time to work with. I've tried to manage athletes and also having fun, right? Like there is that part of it too, where, you could throw in one long ride in there, but your one long, like you said, polarized, you have to, or that long high endurance ride or whatever it is, however you're working on your decoupling, your efficiencies, you've got to really tax the body and completely drain it and teach it that you need higher glycogen stores. You need to get a little more efficient. And, and you do have a major trade-off there. So when you do go hard, like you're saying, short, punch, like really focused in on those really specific systems that you're after within the shorter peak powers, going after that back to back to back is available. Then you can't throw in that longer stuff, like you said, as much or as often. And you have to really focus that training on that high intensity as much. And I think that's a good program. I wouldn't critique that too much, actually, because I've learned that is something that you can do and get away with. I would only critique there would be like, if you do have the extra hours and you want to take it to the next level, it wasn't until I did those training sessions recently that I started to get the results I was looking for. And the reality is, at the highest levels, you just need that long, steady endurance in order to get the most out of the body when it comes to endurance sports. And so I think it's a rare individual that you'll find that can get away with only high intensity training, unless you race track or something that's only that. You know what I mean? Unless that's what you're focused on when it comes to your events. So that's a great segue though into, when it comes to Zwift racing and the way that it's heading. I think, Zwift Academy, if you want to go for the pro contract, I'm not sure you're going to be able to get away with, if you're training for the pro contract, like that's what you're thinking about, the reality of the base foundation that you need to build that structure on top of all of it, right? Like, let's say your zone 2 is 200 watts at like 3 watts per kilogram or something as a man. If you up that to 3.5 to 4.0, all of your other power zones are going to go up across the board, every single one of them. And it'll go up easier, right? Like you'll be able to train them to a higher level when you're working on those peak powers. Whereas if you were just going to go work on them alone, you're missing those marginal gains that you would be able to get from having a higher zone 2. So just as from a coaching.
Yeah, I think I'd agree, Nathan. So from I think the big caveat here, though, is that if you're going to just do this high intensity stuff, you've got to have years behind you of base work. If you're a beginner and you're wanting to hit some of the races and you're just doing high intensity, I think that's a recipe for overtraining, illness, or injury. So it's good to keep in mind if you've got, years behind you of base work, you can sort of get away with just the high intensity. But what I tend to do is a couple of weeks each year we'll focus on that base zone 2 and just spend sort of, I call them crash weeks, a long sort of week of training on the bike, and then get back into the high intensity stuff. What I think is going to be interesting though with what I think is coming into a esport season. So that is coming in from around mid-September, so the spring in the Northern Hemisphere, through to March, so the fall of the Northern Hemisphere, which I think is now becoming our esport season, is how do you work that into where you're racing in real life, then you come into the esport season. So I had an interesting chat with a teammate of mine because I was asking her if she wanted to race Prem League with us, and she talked to her coach and said, look, I actually don't think I can race Prem because I'm racing the ZRL community. I've just had a big season in real life on my road bike. I can't race in the off season twice a week when I'm trying to get in these miles. And so I think people are going to have to start working in, if you're an esport racer and you're cycling in the real world, you can't just have a season backed up straight by another season into esports. So you've got to have a little break there in between, or you've got to be really smart about not burning out. And maybe that is actually what I like about Premier League this time, is that it's every second week for the men and women. So you can kind of have, what I'm going to be doing is structuring 1 week where it's Prem and community, is that is a hard week. Then the next week, really back it off and do only the Zwift Community League race, and everything else would be workouts or a bit easier, and then back to a hard week. So alternate, because I don't know the people you talk to or you raced with, Nathan. At the end of ZRL last season, there were some burnt out riders, massively burnt out. So people have got to be careful of that.
Yeah, the burnout as well as the ability to keep your fitness well. I mean, I saw riders having to sacrifice races in the middle of their league even, right? So I think that there is a reality of being able to go into a season with everything that you need to peak through that season. And I kind of like it that it's only 6 races now because of that in the community. The 2 weeks in between, that works really well. I have that experience with that with our local series here when at the elite level with mountain biking. It's a 2-week gap in between, sometimes even 3. So that gives me an opportunity to put some endurance miles down in between. I think the World Cup circuit does this as well, put some gaps in between, and then they go back to back. And so, allowing the athletes to get the training in that they need and not just expecting them to perform all the time, week in and week out. That's just not a reality of how the human body works when it comes to these endurance sports. This isn't basketball, football, etc., where it's more these short, bursty. I guess you could get away with on the track because there's a one-to-one there a little bit, or hockey, etc. You've got a little bit more when it comes to the athletic sports like that. But when it comes to endurance sports, you got to allow the athletes to do what they need to do. And I think the Prem League and what they're doing on Fridays, 100%. ZRL in the weekend and week out like that, my suggestion is make sure you're getting your training in now. Make sure that you're heading into, that September look at how you're going to prep for that. Get a lot of your base in now. Throw some intervals in the middle of the base, and then you're going to back off that base and allow the racing is workouts as well. You got to remember the racing is actually a workout as well, and then throw an intensity on the other side of that somewhere. How do we actually, let's walk through a week real quickly before we move on. And so it's Tuesdays, right? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to race, it looks like America's on Tuesdays, right? So it looks like I'm jumping into America's. Which team and how is still up in the air. But so there's America's on Tuesdays, Wednesday Worlds on Wednesdays, which is the Z racing. There's going to, with the a weekly individual focus, right, over on the Twitch channel. And then do I do a TTT? I don't know if I can throw the TTT in there as well, but I'm not racing Prem, so I've got the day off while I sit in a microphone instead for Prem. But if I were a part of that whole program, that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There isn't a whole lot going on there because you're going to save your weekend then, which is really interesting when it comes to Zwift. Your weekend becomes just your long base rides then, and you reset on
Yeah.
Monday,
Yeah.
right? So you could do your long base ride or your endurance ride on Saturday, Sunday. I mean, are you going to be racing in real life at that point then? That's kind of an interesting call as well, I would think, Anna.
Well, that's where it's interesting for the Southern Hemispheres is, if that's a word, is because it's summer for us. So, like, that is when we're racing. So people have got to watch out a little bit for that. And I think, to be honest, if you're racing in the weekend, you should potentially take your ZRL week off that week. And make sure you're tapering into that. What I think has worked, and this will segue nicely into the TTT changes, but what I think has worked for me for the TTT is I have found a team that is made up of B and C men. And my turns, so this is where it is the magic sauce for me because I get a really good workout in where I'm taking 1 minute turns on the front at that VO2. So it's working on my 1 minute power. But because I'm with a whole bunch of guys and they're a lot bigger than me, the watts on the flat are really high. So I have to push really high watts when I'm on the front. But when I go into the draft at the back, because they're all a bunch of 7 bigger dudes in front of me, I get a massive draft benefit. So my recovery, it's not sort of VO2 and then threshold, VO2 and then threshold, which is a terrible kind of a way to do a workout. It's sort of VO2 and then 4 minutes, very easy. VO2, 4 minutes, very easy. So it is actually a way I've kind of gotten to the right team to make it a really good workout alongside. So I think you can mix in the TTT in there as well, but you can't overextend. You can't go, oh, well, I'm a B. You know what? I'm just going to kick it with the A's today and just see if I can hang on. You are going to burn your legs off. I think maybe go a little bit lower and kind of use it as a really, really good workout and a good way to practice draft. But on that, TTT news yesterday that came out on the socials. I saw our WTRL put it on some of the racing pages, and there's been a lot of chat on the Discords I've seen. And we will bring in our guest shortly to talk a little bit about this because I know he will geek out big time on it. But this is, I mean, caveat, Nathan and I trialed this when it was sort of in its testing phase a few weeks ago, and it was awesome. So big changes to TTT. I know we've been looking for this for a while. Having a structure like the individual time trial where you're lined up on a row on that conveyor belt, you get shot off. There's no more heading to your pairing screen, hotkeys, missing the start, your trainer going dead because you're in your pairing screen and you haven't pedaled. No more stopwatches like it says there, which I had to do last night, and it's probably the most nerve-wracking job is making sure you've got the start delay right. You can choose your team's exact start time. And the big thing that I love, TT bikes allowed, and they have a draft. So this, I mean, fashion and garage-wise, awesome, because start saving your drops. The TT bike is making a comeback.
Now, my question there, okay, so, and the TT bike is allowed, they have a draft, and they're going to keep the same speeds on them. So, from a fashion perspective, okay, this is just a fashion perspective. It limits, though, everything to TT bikes. So we better have a lot of new TT bikes coming into the game because there's only going to be a couple of decisions to be making then. So my expectation is we've got a whole lot of TT bikes coming in because we're going to have a lot of limitations on what's going to be able to be picked up. But I am loving that. It's much more down to what you would actually expect to be on a TT bike. I almost feel like within the Zwift community, though, and the racing with the TTT, that we've just accepted that everyone uses a road bike, and we kind of like that almost now at this point. So, like, change is hard for people, and now we've got this big change coming in. So I've got very mixed feelings about the TT bike situation here. I understand it. I get why it is because it's trying to go toward what it was in real life, kind of a thing. And who's gonna be in a TTT and be using a road bike? What? That doesn't make any sense. We're trying to go as fast as we possibly can. Now, that is going to smash times, I would assume. Like, I think we are going to be going way faster, and I have a feeling across the board we're going to see minutes taking off of the times.
Yep, and this is where I am going to segue into Aaron Bleakley because he is, I'd actually decided whether we had him on as a guest around PC builds or as the expert DS because he's the one I mentioned the other week who DS'd our Riot team and community where we got huge PBs for way less effort. And he's got a lot to say about these TT bikes and course records. So we'll bring in Aaron now. Aaron, hello. How's it going?
Hi, thanks for having me. It's cold
So,
in here. So
yeah.
bear with me.
So TT bikes in the team time
Yes,
trial, thoughts on how this is going to shake things up?
I think it's awesome. Like, we're going to go way faster. Like, Doppio is going to go up like 2, 3, 4K an hour, which causes quite a lot of problems with like that at that speed. When you make a little mistake with feathering, there's going to be massive gaps opening up. Like, it's gonna it's gonna be a learning experience. Like, we're already pretty good at our pace line and getting some good speed, and then that's gonna throw a spanner in the works because we don't know like what the draft effect's going to be like. Like, is it going to be the same percentage if we're going that fast? If you come out of the pace line, how much it's going to affect it? And then you got the option of even having some people not on TT bikes, like something like Greatest London 8, where you've got a big climb, that like the loop, I should say, and the Greatest London Loop. That's got a big climb near the end. You could have 4 guys on TT bikes pushing to the hill, and then some guys who've sat in the whole way go up the hill faster than the TT bikes could be.
Oh.
So, and then because the speeds have all increased for all of the coffee classes, then everyone's going to need to relearn. So I quite like it. It's just going to take some brain power to kind of work out what's going to be best.
And I think that'll probably be your brain. I know I'll be getting your thoughts, especially if the ZRL is going to include this format too. I'll probably be getting you to write our notes for our community league as well again, Aaron. But before we go into this Zwift PC builds, Aaron, part of the NZ Bro crew out of New Zealand, obviously, so I know him relatively well. He was my PC Yoda and helped me build my own computer, but also going for the New Zealand hour indoor and outdoor record coming up this season. So a legit cyclist in the real world, as well as being a very, very good Zwifter. So Aaron, give us a little rundown.
I gotta give a shout out too. I gotta give a shout out that he is the go-to for attacks off the front in Wednesday Worlds. If I want to attack, I know Bleakley will be there, and the name Bleakley has both been said over and over again amongst the entire esports, I think, commentary crew, because he's just known for throwing it all down on the line early in the races. So big shout out to him on that. And
Thanks.
if you don't have any idea of who Aaron Bleakley is, all you got to do is watch back some of the broadcasts. So
I'm just a meathead, like with a V8, and and my tank is near empty, so I'm just gonna go hard. I just like just the hurting, and yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be able to have something different than it trying to like win those Wednesday Worlds. It's just to go hard, and it'd be nice if more people just send it and not worry so much about the result.
Love it. So Aaron, give us a bit of history.
A bit of history about myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been racing bikes since BMX was not invented, but like I was 8 years old in 1980, and I've done all the bikes since then. So kind of like vegan cyclists, like I do all the bikes. So, track, road, cyclocross, mountain bike like XCO and enduro, and track racing. So, and I've done all right. Like, I'm pretty good on a good day and pretty bad on a bad day. Like, if my high school English teacher gave me a report card, she would be like, did not reach potential. But that's mostly because like I'm a reasonably intelligent guy, but when I throw a leg over a bike in real life, I can barely like get 2 brain cells to rub together. Like, I'm just, I just like going hard, and I'm not super good at being efficient. So the shorter type racing tends to suit me because like I know what to do, but I just don't do it. And then so that's the reason why I started track racing again last summer, and then had just decided that this hour record is kind of like right in my wheelhouse, where I can just kind of hurt myself for an hour, and there's a lot of real technical stuff to deal with, and there's a whole lot of control. So thought I'd give it a whirl.
And I guess the technical stuff is where you cross over a bit to where I met you, which is on the what is it, PC Zwift Master Race Facebook page, which I joined and sat around in the background. It was actually Nathan probably 2 years ago when I was like, man, I need a better setup. And he's like, just build one. I was like, I am not building a computer. And then I went onto this Facebook page. It's Dave Higgins who leads that, great guy. And I kind of just sat there in the background watching all the comments for ages. And then finally, I think you said, Aaron, just I'll help you. Worst case scenario, just ship the whole thing down to me and I'll build it if you really stuff it up. So there was a little parachute there for me and you really helped me out. So I thought, I mean, I'm the layman here. You guys are the experts. So from a layman's point of view, I thought it would be kind of important because a lot of people have said, hey, when I look at your game, it looks really smooth. And I'm like, well, what are you on? And they're like, my iPad connected HDMI to the TV. I'm like, oh, okay. I think maybe let's have a chat about how to get a good PC build and not a really expensive one. And what I learned from you was I could get a perfect Zwift gaming setup for not a huge amount of cost. So take us through, Aaron, this PC build.
Yeah, so when I first started Zwift in lockdown, I used my phone on a stick, like duct tape to a stick outside because I didn't have any fans. And it was, I could race and I could do everything that I wanted to do. And then over time, like worked out that my laptop wasn't any good and then bought a gaming PC from a friend, which also wasn't super good. So between Dave Higgins' advice and my own experimenting, I kind of cost effectively ended up getting to quite a good place. So the reason why we choose PC is to get the best out of the game. So when the Zwift guys built the game, they make all the graphics look really, really nice. And then from there, they compatibility. So that's why you can have like Apple TV and your phones work. But to do that, they need to take stuff out. So when you have Apple TV, they're awesome in the fact that you can just go and buy one, you connect it up and it will work. The disadvantages is that you don't see the detail. So if you imagine you take a photograph of a human face, then you take out all the details. So then you do a cartoon version of that photograph. You're still seeing the human face, but you're just getting the detail. So that's what Apple TV does, is that to be able to run Apple TV, they just reduce the detail. There's also like only a few connections on it, and the quality of the 4K is not 4K. And then for laptops, the best thing about the laptops is that they've got a screen, but the bad thing is that they, again, only run in the basic detail. And some of the laptops really struggle with the game.
Yeah. It's interesting because I know people on my team have said, I think I'll just get a gaming laptop because then if I'm traveling, I can take it with me. But when I looked into that, they are, if you want to get a gaming one, they're really expensive. Really expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing,
they're
is
super
that
expensive, and on top of that, you're not getting even close to the best bang for your buck because they have to fit in the technology and the CPU, the gaming card, the graphics card, all of that ends up being micro-sized and trying to fit in, and no matter what you do, it's not going to perform at the level that you would if you tried to get the same level of a graphics card, CPU, etc. into a regular desktop build. So I mean, I've run on those before, and we've used those for broadcast before, but it definitely is going to be much, when we're talking about bang for your buck, you're not going to get as much out of it, not even close.
Yeah. So, and also the thing is, you can buy, like, if you need a laptop, then just buy a laptop, and then you're still going to save money by buying a laptop and then building like a PC, like and you're still performance. Like, that's the thing, is that if you want to try and get the best of both, then the laptops like aren't the way to go, like in my view. But people have different reasons. So next slide is detail. So what people don't really understand is that there are different levels of detail in the game. So you've got the basic detail, and then you got the ultra, and that's what comes back. I was saying that they remove detail from the game to be able to run on lower systems. So when you get to ultra detail, we're not talking about like 4K ultra. What we're talking about is that detail in the game. So a little bit that they've designed into the game you can see. And that's all determined by when you log in. Zwift sees what you've got that you're running, and then they assign you detail. So in basic, you basically have hardly any scenery, very, very flat looking screen. So there's not like any 3D features and so forth. And then when you move towards having ultra detail, then you can see more.
I think I liked this slide that you had here, which kind of outline. I was having a look at it last night. Outlines everything you don't see, which is obviously those reds when you've got sort of the basic and the medium. And I think this is where people. So I've set up my parents, which is just on the sort of iPad hooked into the TV. And when I rode on their bike to just do a little workout, I was like, this looks so bad. You don't notice it when you don't have anything to compare to. But I was like, yeah, there were no headlights, there was no shadows, there was sort of no dynamic part of the scenery. It just it did look very flat.
Yeah, and the thing is, right, is that like, people will watch a movie on VHS, like on old videotape, and they'll watch, and then they'll movie again on like a Blu-ray player or HD TV or 4K. So we're not saying that your experience for Zwifting is any different, although for all of the people I've done PCs for, they come back and go, oh my goodness, like I just want to ride more because I can see more and it's more immersive. So it's looking at that as the end product for why you'd want to do a PC.
Yeah. And this is what I also found kind of interesting, is that Zwift is actually not and this is, I think, where you come down to where it's a bit cost effective, is because Zwift isn't the highest detail. You can actually, and I think this is what you helped me with, get away with a graphics card and a setup that isn't super expensive, but is perfect for Zwift.
Yeah, so like Zwift is quite good in the fact that because they're trying to get all these devices to work, it's not like the fanciest game. Like Nathan will know that there's so much better in the AAA titles that you can see and how much they've done. But then those games require like a proper good gaming PC for the best result. So for Zwift to get Ultra and 4K or Ultra and slightly less than 4K resolution, you don't need to spend that much money. And that's where we've did your system. Although a new system, we're able to keep the cost right down. So the aim is to just generally get it so that, because people are running TVs, is just to get it so that that the game matches the resolution of the TV, and then it's nice and smooth.
Now, would you say, I mean, I obviously went down the route of building my own PC.
Yeah.
Would that be I mean, I'm loving it. I love that I've got a PC that is just purpose-built and it works so well, thanks to you, Aaron. But would you say if people are looking at this and they're looking to, upgrade, is that the best way to go?
No. So what I recommend people do, and what Dave Higgins, who runs the Masters, recommends that people do, is make like what we call a Frankenstein PC, which is taking an old office PC, putting in a new solid state drive, putting in a reasonably good video card, and then will do the best quality that the game can give for not much money. So yeah, you could literally, like, there's people who've got like an old office PC in their house at the moment that they probably haven't used for 10 years. If you just upgraded the hard drive to a solid state drive and put it in a video card, then you can do that for a few $100s and have the best picture that Zwift can do. So, and then worst case, you can go onto eBay or Craigslist or something like that and get something that is good enough to start, and then add the little bits and pieces, and then you're away.
Okay.
So quick
So
one on that though. For those who are like, wait a second, you want me to get out tools and you want me to open up a what? And they're like complete. No, I'm serious, you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Like
yeah,
somebody who's buying an Apple TV, like you got to remember that this is the same crew who thought about buying a Peloton or got on
yeah,
Zwift. You know what I mean? Like these are people who are very much, and not to take anything away from them, it's just not their focus. Like they'd rather have nothing to do with anything when it comes to opening up a computer, right? Like building a PC sounds like, if you ever saw my grandpa, the only thing he could make was burger soup in the kitchen, okay? And that was
yeah,
it. Like he could cut it, like, and he knew how to do that. But everything else, it was like, I'm not touching the kitchen. Like that was what grandpa was like. Like there was just no going into that just didn't happen. So like, I have a feeling that it's like there's an very averse, like technology averse. So we need to give them like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Like there's like 3 or 4 parts that they need to think I can get this, this, and this, and that's the minimum, and then I will be able to have the PC that runs at the highest level. Because I think some people, they get sold something though. There's this tension
yes,
here, right? They get sold
yeah,
something and it will do it at this level, and then they go to do it and they go, it didn't do it at the level I thought it would. But this, and they didn't understand. Here's the main thing: is they didn't understand the trade-off they were making when they made that purchase, right? Like
yes,
there's a trade-off you make when you make certain purchases where it's like, well, it'll get you to this level on the iPad and it'll get it done. And here's the conveniences for you, but it isn't necessarily laid out that like when I did that, I was letting go of A, B, and C.
yeah. And that's the thing though, is that like when I helped Anna build, and she was doing a live stream of it, and I was watching her, like it takes me like 30 minutes, 45 minutes to put the parts together for the PC, and poor Anna took some time, and I was super proud of it though, because like it is a massive step if that's not something that you're used to do it, but it's all possible. Um, and building directly right from scratch like she did can be hard for some people, and that's the barrier YouTube and bits and pieces. So for a lot of people to build a Frankenstein PC will be beyond there's people in the community who in all of the countries who will quite happily provide these PCs. Like I build some for the NZ Bros. I know that Dave and in the UK does some for the UK people, and then there's guys in the States. So you will be able to find someone in your Zwift team who is handy at this stuff, and maybe leverage them. Do the same as what I did with helping Anna, is like just help the community, and because there's always going to be a nerd somewhere. Like we're everywhere.
Get your own PC Yoda, right? Get your local PC Yoda who can help you out.
Yeah, because like I have a history in home automation, so like I know some stuff, but I'm not like a computer build person. So
Yeah.
there was still, when I first started, there was still like a stuff for me to learn, and then you'll have someone in your team who has done the same process. And I know that there's a couple of really techo guys within the NZ Bro team who don't need my help, and they could have been quite happy to help out people as well.
And I think this kind of, you might be listening going, well, what does this have to do with racing? And the reason is we sort of talked about it a little bit last week, and that's why we got Aaron on today. And we've got some game footage so you can see the difference. And if you don't know the comparison and you're on a low frame rate and a sort of potato-like system, it can really impact your racing. So if we look at, sorry, I'll just click through some of these because we've kind of talked about those, but this is talk us through this, Aaron.
So this is so the same PC was used for the two videos. So this is what a lot of people have as their picture. So you can see all the detail and it's all fine, but you have like a little step staggery part, and then the busier that it is, the worse that it can get. And then if you happen to be riding by yourself, then it's pretty smooth. So what ends up happening there is that because of those little steps, you can't actually see the updating of the watts per kilo on the right hand side that well. Also, at that little stepping, you are missing maybe half a meter to a meter of like feathering, because the frame rate's so slow and you're doing 40, they're doing 43 in that video, you're not being able to react and feather correctly. So if you had like a glitchy steppy thing like that in a TTT, it would be almost impossible to be able to hold a wheel, because you're not being able to react properly and feather correctly. And that's how it can affect. So I race with a couple of guys who have, I know for a fact, have systems that do what is shown, and they have trouble holding the gap in a proper pace line. So that is one of the bigger advantages of having something that can be nice and smooth.
Yeah, that's when I saw these two videos, and I'll show the smooth one soon. I mean, that's just, I mean, racing with that one, I feel like I would get a headache, but also, yeah, that feathering. And if you think about, I mean, I could imagine a race of 100 people going through Neokyo, which is quite heavily sort of CPU dependent from what I know. That stuttering would be, it could be race ending to try and get on to move.
There's stability issues with people who want to race with more than 100 people in Neokyo. Like the amount of people I hear who have their whole system just go kick Zwift out or even just shut down, like it's pretty tough on some of the, like even Apple TV, like it starts doing the little staggery thing in Neokyo with a lot of people. So if you want to be able to race in those big events on some of the harder worlds, then that's a definite advantage to get something nicer.
I wanted to jump in here and just say that on that front as well, when it comes to those FPSs, when you're at lower FPS and you get any kind of a stagger, it is kind of like riding blind, because there's a drafting that's happening and your game, as well as your own eyes and the network, are all trying to hit the same understanding of each other. You're all trying to hit the same point of where am I? Right? All three of those are trying to figure out where the avatar is, and at no point are you getting a clear communication of that between Zwift servers, what's on your screen, and what you're seeing. So in the game, on what's running on your PC is one communication of where you are, and it's all over the place. The server thinks is just placing you somewhere in the cloud. And that's where you're going to end up when it comes to a finish line, or where, or even where it's going to say you are when it comes to a draft. And then there's actually what you're seeing, right? And wherever it's staggering. And so I get it. A lot of people, I hope that explained it, why when I'm in a TTT and I'm ripping my hair out, asking why people are not where they're supposed to be, and if this is the reason why, it really makes a huge difference, because the game doesn't know where you are. You don't know where you are. I don't know where you are. And you have to know where you are.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that, like, because of how Zwift do the positioning, it's a pretty close approximation to where you are. It's like, it's pretty much kind of like, hopefully, within like a bike length of where you're supposed to be. So when you start adding in, like, bad internet, like what Nathan has at the moment, and and like things like frame rate and so forth, like you start really, like, for racing and being able to feather and do stuff properly, you just add in the extra dimension of difficulty. Like if, like at that frame rate, say if Nathan was to like do his like Call of Duty or something, like you'll die in like 2 seconds with 20 FPS. Like, you know, the reaction time is like, you need to be able to see stuff, and that shows up particularly at the frame rate. So when you play the smoother video,
look at that, it's like butter.
Yep. So unfortunately, I had to scale it down from how pretty it looked on my screen to 720p. But there's so much more in the way of the grass on the side of the road. Plus, even with, there was 100 people in that group, I think, that day, it's just nice and smooth.
Yeah, and you can see it was a point you made with the TTT, and I have the same as Nathan. I get really frustrated when people crowd me from behind or look like they're kind of surging, and you're like, stop doing that. I'm trying to keep my line, and you're like mucking it up. And then when I saw that sort of 15 frame rate and what that would look like to them, I'm like, well, no wonder, because by the time they've made a little reaction to get on my wheel, they've stuttered kind of forward or they've stuttered back, and it just makes the chain very, very hard and very annoying. So I hope that kind of made it clear for everyone. We wanted to sort of have it for the layman of why it is worth having a good PC setup, or a good setup in general. It's not so much because everything looks pretty. I mean, it does, and it looks amazing, but it's also just for racing. It could be making a big difference. I saw Liz Van Houweling just came into the chat. She said on Wednesday Worlds yesterday, Nathan, that she actually didn't notice she had such a bad frame rate until she was racing and kind of got dropped. And then when she was by herself, she was like, oh, it's gone back to being nice again. So that's kind of the issue. You're racing with a whole lot of people. And I mean, Liz is probably used to the Prem racing where, we had 10 at a time. So it's not a huge impact. But you go into these, popular Wednesday World ones, huge impact.
Yeah, well, we had 75 people start an A grade yesterday with Nathan and me. And and then at the beginning, if you were on something that was struggling a little bit, it would have been chopping all over the place. And because of the way that the churn happens, it's hard enough to see where people are as it is. And then people can just disappear off into the distance without you really realizing. And then when you start riding by yourself, then your PC or your Apple TV or phone can handle it a little bit better. But yeah, it's a real rabbit hole.
Oh, sorry. If somebody wants to go off the shelf, just off the shelf, like rather than a PC build, it sounds like you're saying an Intel 12th gen or better. Like, is this new PC build something something that we could just read off and be like, for especially those listening on audio, could you just give us like, here's the absolute minimum that you'll get the most out of it, and you'll be able to race without breaking your wallet?
So if you're going to go new, then the new 12th gen Intel is a must. And you don't have to get the fancy version of that. For whatever reason, it just runs with super, super well. So when it gets really busy, you don't get like what Liz was having where you get the frame rate drops. Like you can have 100 people and it will cope with it and keep everything good. And then you obviously need to have a solid state drive. Like that's like gone are the days of having like a slow startups. And then you'll need 8 GB of RAM. You don't need to go like much more than that. Like you can go more than that if you're doing streaming or a whole bunch of stuff in the background. And then if you then you need a power supply, which will power your video card. And then I suggest buying a secondhand GPU if you want to keep costs down. Otherwise, you can go new and something in, I'll use the fancy term, like a 1660, like a GTX 1660 by NVIDIA or more will give you the ability to do 4K. And then anything slightly less than that, you can do not 4K and have quite a good screen. So if you've got like a 60-inch 4K TV that you are sitting close to and you want to have like the best detail, then you do need to throw a little bit of money at the graphics card to be able to handle that. And then, and you can do like a PC part clicker, like there'll be a PC store around that will build the PC for you, and you can just click each of these things and then and have them build it, and then you'll be away. But again, like I think for your system, Anna, it would have been maybe about 600 US.
Yeah, 600 US.
Yeah. So not expensive.
And I know we built mine with a bit of production in mind too, so you could probably, I would imagine, lower spec some things. You're actually getting a few comments, Aaron, of just build me a PC and ship it off to the States, easy peasy. So we might have a few there. I do want to note as well that because obviously there's a lot to this topic. There are show notes on the channel, and there will be in the podcast description too, to what Aaron Bleakley has presented, but also to a Zwift Insider article that I think Dave Higgins helped through with Eric Schlang on sort of a nuts and bolts of, you know, what is the best setup. And I know you've touched on a few of those points too, Aaron. So there are resources after this. If you do want to go down this track, now that you've seen how it can really impact your racing, your setup, then the resources are all there. But thanks so much for coming on a very cold morning and delaying your start to the work day, Aaron. It's really appreciated.
Well, it's Friday. I don't care so much.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Aaron.
Cheers, Aaron. Appreciate it, Aaron. Yeah, it's awesome having him on. And, you know, it just doesn't stop, right, Anna? The bling in bike racing just doesn't stop. No matter what, we're always upgrading. The marginal gains are becoming digital now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I was so scared about building my PC. And honestly, like, it was probably the most challenging thing that I've done. And the freaking LED light cabling. Oh, that got me. That took nights of work after that, of Aaron and I pulling our hair out because we couldn't figure out how to do it. But I love it. And it is something to think about. Save up a bit of money or just have a look at what you can do with your own system. But yeah, that was a good sort of intro into the changes you can make to your setups and not have it be super scary.
Well, speaking of setups, I think it's on to the fashion show. You're talking about LED, you know, fashion of the week here. LED setups. You know, I just gave up on the LEDs, I think, and just didn't even connect them. But Evo Team Kit is what we're looking at. This is an awesome kit. It's one of my favorites in games. That bright, do you call that magenta or do you call that pink? What do you call that, Anna?
This is definitely magenta, Nathan. Jeez, that's pink.
I said magenta first.
Okay.
I said magenta first. But I could see someone saying, like, that's an off pink. That's a dark pink. No, that's magenta. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, so we don't use generic color names in the fashion show. It's not pink or blue. It's aquamarine or magenta. You've got to go into the detail here. So this is a great crew. So Evo Cycling, they do awesome workouts. And this is actually a clip of a workout I was doing with them where I was like, look at this magenta train. They just look resplendent. I love that a lot of them use the magenta Tron bike as well. And they have often said to me in commentary, we will always use the magenta Tron, and I'll always call them out if they don't use it. Just love the kit. It's very simple. So it's just two colors, pink, magenta, and black. And they sort of link the two really nicely. So it's a magenta top with black detailing, black shorts with magenta detailing. So looks beautiful, great crew as well. If you want to do a good workout, they actually do a really good one where it's not like a workout. They do the workout while you're riding using the terrain. So this one we did Titans Grove and we sort of hit it at pace and we did some intervals and then we went up a climb. So it's a group ride, but with a workout style, which I really enjoy. It was really nice.
Yeah, and Evo, from what I hear, are really strict when it comes to riding for the team in their team kit and making sure they keep everybody within the fashion requirements. So it's also something I like about Evo. Whenever they show up, they definitely show up looking like everybody's on terms when it comes to, you know, how they're going to be looking, how slick the kit is, and making sure they're all across the board when it comes to all the pieces to their setup and their kit. So Evo definitely have put some thought into that and keep things organized. Very cool team and quite well represented in the Zwift Racing League. Well, the garage pick off the map headband. I know you were really excited about this, Anna.
I have been waiting for years for a new headband to drop because, you know, I don't love the color orange and it was always the orange headband. And then I saw off the map delivered. I did one group ride. I was so tired, but I literally just did it to unlock this headband. It looks amazing. Now, the only thing I would say is it's not that magenta hot pink color. That is what I would prefer. It goes with my Riot kit a bit better. It's kind of a bit more of a statement. This is kind of what I would call a dusky pink. So a kind of dusky color, but still just love the new color headband. And I think from looking at the Zwift Academy website that's up, that there may be maybe some interesting unlocks coming as well in the fashion stakes. So that will be something we'll look at next week, or at least when we start unlocking it. But yeah, thoughts on the headband and just this color, Nathan? What do you reckon?
I love it that we have a new headbanding game. I actually want this, but I don't think I can get now. I'm not sure I can. I can still get it. Isn't there makeup still?
There'll be
I'm not sure if
makeups.
there
There'll be
is.
makeups.
There'll be makeups. Yeah, there'll be makeup, so I'll be able to grab that. And the color, I'd even call it a little bit of a purple. Looking at that, like
Yeah.
I mean, it's or a puce. Do they say? Is that the
Ooh,
right word or
I
something
like
like?
that.
So yeah, but it does. I mean, it's right in the middle there. I absolutely love though that it's got the map across the forehead there, and it matches well with a lot of the kits in game. I think the accent that you can bring to your Tron setup a lot of times, the Tron setup can get really loud if it goes across all of the pieces in your kit. And I think that matching your Tron to this is a nice little accent to how loud the Tron can be when you're riding it.
Yeah, exactly. It's I have had some chat coming in. It always lights up a little bit. Oh, JPS from Rhino. Hold on, because I've got a new segment.
Did he see?
I don't
What the
know,
heck?
but this is
Like,
interesting.
freaking
Stay
hackers.
on. Stay
Freaking
on. I
hackers.
know. So I will come to that in a sec. I've got a new little piece. It won't be every week. It's just if I see something interesting. But Katie Loca said that the new headband, she loves it, but doesn't go quite well with the electric spirit kit. I agree. It's a really tricky headband to match with kits because it isn't that bright color. So match at your own peril, but I am going to pull in what I'm calling fashion in the field. So this is where I see someone out riding in just a group ride I'm doing. This was the Sisu Racing KQOM challenge. This rider, Dee McKinley from Rhino Racing, this looks beautiful. The first thing I said when we started riding was, your kit looks amazing. Not only that, when I was racing, and this is mid-race, this shows how important it is. You can see me drifting off the back because I'm trying to get a good close-up. Is okay, two-toned Tron, always A+ for me. This is where you've got the pink sort of front of the wheel and then the blue side panel. Perfect. It's very hard to get that. You have to kind of get that slider right in the right place. Leather gloves, which I was initially like, ooh, what is he doing? Matched with leather shoes. Beautiful. Then matched with that kind of the same leather colored glasses, the off the map headband, which matches beautifully with that Rhino kit. I mean, this was fashion in the field. Every accessory is spot on. Bike looks beautifully matched to the kit. Huge amount of work that McKinley has put in here from Team Rhino. So
He's even got the
it's an
man
A.
bun going on too, with the brown hair going back that matches perfectly with the other accents. Very, very well done. And yeah, the accent on the Rhino kit, you would almost think that they knew the map was coming, that the map headband was coming, with how perfectly it hits the Rhino Racing new kit and game, I believe, actually too. I haven't seen that before.
I hadn't.
So very cool. Well done on the Rhino kit, because you know what I think they did with Rhino is they looked at what was across the world of Zwift racing and teams and said, we need to differentiate ourselves. And I think they really hit a niche where we have not seen this kind of purple, darker, these colors in this kind of a block patterns. They got block pattern. It's not woven together in any way. It's not a bunch of little cross patterns or anything. This is really specific to them. Really liking it. I love what they've done with the R as well. So nicely done here from Rhino.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. And watch out if I'm in your race, because this won't be a segment every week. This is only if I see something that I class as an A+ kit and accessory combination. So keep an eye out if I'm in your race, because it might be you I profile next in fashion in the field.
Fashion in the field. I love it. Well, all right. Well, that's going to be all of our topics for today. Besides, what's coming up over the weekend out on Zwift as well as in real life racing? Anna, what do you got for us this weekend?
I'm racing in real life. I'm racing a duathlon out at a racetrack, the National Duathlon Champ. So, yeah, I'm pretty pumped. Got to actually get out on my bike on the roads tomorrow.
National Duathlon Champs?
Yeah, yep.
Woo!
Got to try and take the title.
Let's go. All right, everybody. We're looking for episode 5 of the wrap. We're going to have a champion, national champion on our hands here for duathlon. I'm racing Ore to Shore. It's a point-to-point race, one of the largest in the Midwest. It's the first of the Triple Crown. I'm leaving tonight, actually, and getting in at 1 a.m. in the UP of Michigan. If you know the names, some big names have won this. Lexi Vermeulen, I believe, won it last year. Brian Motter's won it many times. Some big names out of Michigan as well. The Psy Monster, who's raced the Kiss 100 a lot of times with us on the weekends, has won this. I mean, it's a big race, and it's actually a lot of people do this as a warm up into the Schwamagon, which is a part of the Grand Prix. That's the North American Grand Prix that's been going on, and then from there it's Iceman's the rest of that Triple Crown. Also, if you're looking for Zwift stuff, obviously the Tiny Race Series is going on, and with Eric Schlange on Saturday mornings, Saturday morning US. Pretty awesome. Go check those out. 4 races in a row, back to back to back. Very short, punchy, lots of chatter. You said you did that this past weekend, I believe it was, or the week before?
Oh, I did the first one. I was signed up to do the second one, but like I said, I think I overdid the racing and got on the bike and started warming up and was like, nope, not today.
We do have a question that I have to answer. How did the Fantasy Tour France Femmes go? Thank you so much. Bakken in chat, Rune Vagard Bakken, who has also been doing the Wednesday Worlds, and he actually has been live streaming them, I believe, or at least recording them. And Liz Van Houweling did her own record. I saw Richie Berry did their own record. Like, we have a media channel in the Discord for it, and people are posting their media now from the races from Wednesday Worlds. So that's a big shout out to that. Great to see that people are doing that, which is, Anna's really happy that we're changing this.
I know, great
right
to see.
now,
Love it. Keep talking, Nathan.
We don't have an image of it, I don't think, anymore. I had it in my productions, but I didn't show it off. I think some guy out of Wisconsin won. Some cheesehead won the...
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows?
The competition's finished.
FX Zwift. Competition. She doesn't even want to say. What were the standings? I think BJ Alfonso might have taken second, I think. I'm not... Well, it might have got changed up, though.
I wasn't top 3. I definitely know that. So we will move on from that topic. But that does go into our guest next week. We will have Kate from Zwift coming on. She's locked in to talk all things Zwift Academy action. She'll probably touch a bit on the Tour de France, Femme avec Zwift, but Zwift Academy coming up, which everyone I know gets super excited about. And the numbers are huge. So it'd be great to talk to her and hear of anything kind of new they might have in the works for this season for that one.
That's huge. I mean, big shout out to Zwift and Kate coming on. If you haven't checked out an episode, you know, this is going to be an episode you want to jump in on because Kate's been around. She was one of the first persons I've met at Zwift. She was at the North American Tour the first time I had went to one of their events, introduced me to some of the people who were working on the ground there, and I worked with her in a lot of the North American Tour. I worked with her when we go to the offsites. And now she has been spearheading this and has been the face of this. If you haven't seen, she was in Forbes. She was interviewed on national television specifically about this. Great to have Kate on board. And you're going to be able to get not just what's happened with the Women's Tour de France now, but also a view of how committed Zwift has been with Kate on board here for women's cycling, because she raced in the Pro Peloton, was passionate about it the moment she jumped in, and has been all about growing women's cycling. And she's part of the reason why you've seen so much focus on the women's side of things in Zwift for this past 7 years since Zwift launched. So I'm really excited to have Kate on. I actually spent some time in Iceland with her and her partner actually when we raced the WOW Cyclathon as well. So great part of Zwift. Really excited to have Kate Verano on.
Awesome. Yeah, tune into next show. That'll be fun.
Super awesome. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning in. You can, if you're just getting here, you can definitely check out the audio version of this. I believe Anna will have that going in the next 24 hours or so. And we'll have links to all of the information about this show in the YouTube. Make sure to check that out. And we'll be back for wrap episode 5 next week, Wednesday Worlds next week. And make sure you're signing up for ZRL, Zwift Academy, all the stuff we're chatting about. Head on over to all those spots. We'll link those up as well. As always, everybody, thanks for tuning in and ride on.